from one of the poorest economies in the region for a formidable economy in the region today. Korea, where does it stand today? Can we learn, as Sri Lankans, lessons from the Korean context? To discuss all this and more, I have a very special guest this evening on my show, Biz First in Focus. And that is Ambassador Young-mok Kim, the President of Koica, Korea International Cooperation Agency. A very good evening and welcome to the show.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Starting off, you took over the helm as the President of Koica in May 2013. It's quite early to predict as to what you're going to do in your tenure as in office as the President of Koica. But just give me an outline as to what you do and what is the role of Koica in the region in the present context.
Well, first of all, Koica is a Korean government aid agency. So the job of the Koica is basically to strategically plan aid and particularly grant aid to friendly countries in the region and across the globe. We are focusing most of our resources on Asia Pacific region. Sri Lanka is one of the largest recipient country from point of Korea. And what we are doing is we try to tune our strategy for aid in line with the recipient country's development plan. So what we are trying to do in Sri Lanka is to help part or overall general aspect of your goal of your government's economic and social development. So we are trying to coordinate with your government and specifically which part and specifically which project, which capacity building are needed, then we are helping within the limit of our resources.
Ambassador Kim, you met several high-ranking officials attached to the government, and if I am correct, you met the President as well during your stay in Sri Lanka. What sort of agreements have you been able to reach with the Sri Lankan government, keeping in mind the objective of your organization?
Well, first of all, our government goal is to share our experience and know-how for Korea to reach this status of being one of the 10th largest economic power in the world. And second, we agreed that Sri Lanka and Korea should continue to strengthen its cooperative relationship, and Korea would like to help Sri Lanka for its plan to develop national, industrial, social status. Third, maybe Korea can be specifically helpful for specific industrial sector like electronics, maritime building, and also the healthcare and education, which is in line with the UN MDG's goal. So this will be done. We agreed that in a master plan based on your national development strategic plan.
It's been 4 years since the end of the conflict in Sri Lanka. Are we on the right track in terms of moving towards development, Ambassador Kim?
I think Sri Lanka has a unique experience suffering of conflicts for 2 decades. I think Sri Lanka has lost opportunity while other Asian nations developed its economic prowess over the 2-3 decades. So Sri Lanka should catch up with this lost time with the assistance of other friendly countries. It would not be only Korea, but many others would like to help this. So we hope Sri Lanka will be able to achieve same achievements with the other countries done. Why not Sri Lanka can do same with Korea?
Have we achieved enough, Ambassador Kim?
We are still hungry. I cannot say that we have done enough, but I think we are in the process of building our capacity. But
in terms of the Sri Lankan government, the last 4 years, has the Sri Lankan government done enough in terms of achieving development?
Well, nobody can say that any government can do enough, must have done enough. But it is amazing that within a short period of time after the ending of the conflict, what Sri Lanka has achieved is amazing because you have outstanding performance within the surrounding environment was not really positive. Recession has been played out in developed countries. world has been very slow in achieving economic growth. So we are amazed by the Sri Lankan achievement.
Ambassador Kim, you spoke about how friendly nations should assist Sri Lanka to move forward. Does Sri Lanka have the right kind of environment for friendly nations to come in and invest in Sri Lanka? Do you think that we have the right kind of environment in the country to attract FDIs or foreign direct investment?
I think you have a strategic position, first of all, between the West, between the Gulf and Eastern Africa, and also Eastern Asia. You are in the middle. And Sri Lanka is a natural course for voyage, transportation. So naturally you can use your strategic position. Secondly, I know and you know that Sri Lankan people are all intellectual, and they are very talented. So you can use these talented people for further developments. What is needed for you is to develop more surroundings in which young people can benefit from that policy or surroundings. So the one is your policy to open the market and encourage foreign investors to come more to use this asset of Sri Lanka for the benefit of both sides, for Sri Lankan people, also for themselves.
China is currently investing in many development projects in Sri Lanka. A port was built, highways are being sponsored by the Chinese government. Is it in any sort of concern to your government, the Korean government?
There is nothing to concern about Chinese help of Sri Lanka. We must thank for Chinese to do what are needed anyway for Sri Lanka, because if Chinese are doing many things, our burden, Korea's burden, being lessened. So I must thank for Chinese.
Considering the diversity of issues that Sri Lanka has faced over the last 3 decades or so, and in particular the last 4 years, Ambassador Kim, how applicable do you think is the model used in Korea to the Sri Lankan context?
I think there are many aspects that Sri Lanka can take lessons from Korea, because Korea was one of the poorest countries for a long time in the world. Secondly, Korea has no natural resources, no petrol, no energy. Korea is one of the largest importers of petrol, oil, LNG gas, and other raw materials from all over the world, particularly from the Gulf. Third one, Korea has only focused on education and human development, and bold policy of pushing industry and giving encouragement to people, villagers, and mobilize all the nation to one purpose, to get out of poverty and become middle class. That has been successful. Korea's success story can be taken by many countries, but particularly by Sri Lanka, because you have got out of the long time conflicts. You have talented people, you have a strategic position, you don't have much petrol or energy, but you can use your position and your intellectual asset for the takeoff. So I think there should be many similarities you can take.
There was a coup in Korea in 1961, and many thought it was the end of the story for Korea at that point of time. However, it was during this period that the economy really grew. In the late 1960s and the early 1970s, there was a boost in the country's economy. What lessons have you all learned as a country?
Well, there is still controversy inside Korea about whether this government can be justified or not. But from the economic point of view, but from the realistic point of view, without this committed and honest leadership, Korea would not have been possible to have this Korea's today. Because during that period, Korea's villages were able to get out of the extreme poverty and became to join the middle class. And the gap between the urban and rural area became almost the same. And Korea's heavy industries base was laid. Like you know, Korea's shipbuilding is the largest in the world, and then Korea's manufacturing of a car industry is within the fifth largest in the world. Korea's semiconductor, smartphone, and electronic, these are one of the top in the world. There are many. Korea's maritime capability is within the maybe fifth and third. Korea's, you know, the Incheon airport is the first ever top service airport for the last 10 years. So there are so many Korea's achieved in many sectors that were all laid out during that period. So we cannot only blame previous government. I think the leadership is needed when the country needs to take up.
Having said all what you said right now, Ambassador Kim, in 1979, the military government was overthrown and a democratic framework came into play. There was a democratically elected government in Korea and so on and so forth right after 1979. What is the reason behind it? If there was development taking place in your country in the early 1970s?
I think this is the people. This is the people. I think Korean people are very smart. Once they need efficient government, they accepted the leadership.
So they wanted a military
and then
taking place in
once they
1961,
become rich enough, they wanted more freedom and democratic system. So it is the Korean people who chose, who smartly make a balance between the two.
So you mean to say that the Korean people want a military coup in 1961 and then they rejected them in
Korean,
1979?
this not the Korean people didn't want the military coup. Korean people accepted to some extent. They didn't like it at the beginning, but they became to accommodate to this leadership and accepted finally. And then endured about 15 years. Then they wanted to know that they need more freedom and more open and democratic system. That's why everything has started to change.
If there is boom, if there is from a poor country to a good economy, for a formidable economy, one of the best examples that is brought forth in today's context is Korea. You all have a very good rural development program as well. In Sri Lanka too, there is a program that is being introduced by the Ministry of Economic Development called the Young-mok program. Do you see any parallel to these two programs
I
that
think
is
the
taking place?
purpose and the spirit of these two programs are very similar. To make villagers to come out of the poverty and give them incentives, so that they can get the sense of can-do spirit, sense of achievements, self-motivation. This is the same. What we are going to do here is to share our experience and your reality so that programs can be smarter and more efficient. So we agree that we would like to cooperate on sharing the tactics and method, and then we are stressing both that the spirit, change of mentality, transformation is very important.
Right after the end of the conflict, Ambassador Kim, there was some sort of growth in Sri Lanka as far as the economy is concerned. We were hitting close to 9% economic growth in 2010. However, maintaining and sustaining this economic growth has been a problem in Sri Lanka. Capitalism and democracy are proved to be the most effective models used in our world today in terms of maintaining a very good balance of payments and a very good economy. And in your opinion, which form of capitalism and which type of democratic participation do we need in Sri Lanka, taking into account what we have undergone?
Well, there is a continuing debate on what shape of capitalism, what philosophy of capitalism can serve the people. Still, controversy is going on. From my point of view, capitalism must be based on fair system, and capitalism must be able to motivate people to share. Okay, the new capitalism must be not any small part of people get everything from all the nations achieved. The healthy capitalism should be fair, and distribution must be, even, and also the capitalism must be able to help ensure people in need.
Ambassador Kim, does Korea have a solid foundation in terms of economic growth? There has been some sort of threatening taking place as far as economies are concerned from countries like China and Japan. I correctly mentioned the intervention of China in countries like Sri Lanka's economic growth. What is your opinion on the sustainability of Korea's economic growth over the coming few years? Do you see a downward trend? The economic growth is not that great, it's just 3.4% or so in your country.
You know, I think advanced country, Korea is already one of advanced economy. Advanced economies have all very same problem of losing potential for economic growth. From United States, Japan, and European countries, they have all same problems. They have a fiscal deficit. They have a huge national debt. They must have taken care of aging populations. So every country has a big dilemma on how to put economic potential back on the track. Korea's problem is very similar to common with other countries, but Korea should be smarter to create the new potential for economy. One strategy for us is to give more focus on creative economy. Creative economy means you must be more creative, imaginative, and we must create the economy based on knowledge. Then physical manufacturing. We must continue the manufacturing, but we must do more focus.
Are you referring to vocational training? Yes. That emphasis should be made to human resources in a particular country for economic growth to be sustainable. Is that what you're trying to say, Ambassador Kim?
Well, we are trying to help other nations like Sri Lanka for human development, because we know that this is only asset for countries who has nothing as energy or natural resources. This is only human development which can be used for development. Even countries with enough natural resources, if they don't have enough and appropriate human resources, they can develop water. So most important thing for development is a human development. We are ready to help through our own experience, through our own strategy.
Ambassador Kim, when you really take a look at Sri Lanka's relationship with the West has not been that great over the last few years. There has been somewhat cornering taking place from the international community in the eyes of the Sri Lankan government as far as international relationships are concerned and foreign policies are concerned. Do you think there has to be a shift in the way in which Sri Lanka looks at the West, or the West looks at Sri Lanka vice versa?
Well, I think the efforts are needed from both sides. I think that some of Western governments are only focusing on specific incident, while they don't really understand the deep-rooted problems of Sri Lanka. And then also Sri Lanka must be giving more attention to the concern of West, because Sri Lanka has a right to aim at its own goal, but at the same time, reconciliation or doing some bold actions for easing or solving misunderstanding of Western governments or Western groups are also needed.
So you mean to say there has to be a change of attitude towards the West? Is that what you're trying to say?
What I think what Sri Lanka needs this time is exchange communication more intensively with the Western groups, media, and the governments, so that the understanding can help the situation.
This is your first visit to Sri Lanka. It's very, it's not right for me to ask you to judge Sri Lanka in just 4 to 5 days. But what is your present take on Sri Lanka?
Well, I confirmed my previous imagination that Sri Lanka has a great potential in the process of rebuilding nation, and Sri Lanka has a great potential for human development. I confirmed this. When I visited the University of Colombo, I was fascinated by the intellectuality of all audience, and also I see around, and then there is a great potential. So that was a rewarding visit for me.
What message will you be taking back home to Korea, Ambassador Kim?
Well, my message will be that we must be more interested in our relations with Sri Lanka. We must be more interested in using Sri Lanka for Korea's opportunity. At the same time, Korea must be able to assist Sri Lanka with its own experience and capability to the maximum extent so that two nations can share the prosperity together.
If you are told to change the course of development in Sri Lanka in your present capacity, what changes would you envisage, Ambassador Kim?
Well, as a president of Koica, we can continue our AIDS program in sectors, strategic sector, as I said earlier. And secondly, we can talk to many companies and government agencies to be more engaged with Sri Lanka. And we can talk airliners, tourism, and our public that you can visit more Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a beautiful assets, national treasures. We can do more with Sri Lanka. That we can do as a public campaign. And also in the process of our work, we can talk to many other people and agents and companies.
What message you have for Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka is worth visiting. Sri Lanka is a beautiful country, and Sri Lanka people are generous and kind. We can do many things in Sri Lanka.
Ambassador Kim, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining us right on this First in Focus. Pleasure to have you on board today.
Thank you very much.